So why do I wear mine? Well, because let's face it, there are lots of times when I'm out running, and I'm not running in a cassock. Okay, sorry, it's a great image. I wore my cassock in high school. They said, "Oh, you're starting in the Matrix." I thought, it's depressing me. That's the only place some of these kids have seen a cassock. Anyway, but every time I put on this ring, it's a reminder of the pledge of priesthood, the pledge of celibacy for the sake of the kingdom. See, that's why, and this is what's strange, a priest is not single, but he's also not married. When we say the priest is married to the church, that's an analogy. It's a helpful analogy. But he's this third condition. He's celibate. He's given himself completely to the service of the church. So every time I'm out running, or I'm at the pool, or I'm lifting weights, or sometimes just out buying groceries, which, by the way, if you're any part of a small city in Oklahoma, there is nothing quite as humorous as being in the Walmart in a place like Alva, Oklahoma. As you're pushing the cart down the aisle in a Roman collar, that people will literally go. And that's not an exaggeration. I had someone actually follow me. So I went this way down the aisle, they passed this way, doing all the way. I got to the aisle, came back, guess who was there? Apparently it's me and the Lutheran in town that were rolling cars. Okay, that was it. Okay. But, that's a good sign. It's a good sign. Why? Because the sign of the collar, and also, quite frankly, folks, the sign of the wedding ring, is something that should be treated with slack-jawed amazement. Wait, you mean God really does that sort of stuff? Really? He takes two people, makes them into one flesh? Really? You mean there's someone who can give up the good of marriage, not because he hates it, but because he thinks it's so good it's worth sacrificing for the sake of something even greater? Really? God can do stuff like that? Oh, yeah. That's why slack-jawed wonder is probably the right response. And by the way, look at your parents for a minute and think about it. There's a slack-jawed wonder for you. Your parents love each other so much that 9 months later they give you a name. There. There's some more slack-jawed wonder for you. It's not, in other words, if we're made to be a gift, and we're made to give ourselves, it's not an anonymous gift. And it's not an ambiguous gift. It's a deliberate gift. It's a vocation. It's something we're called to be. And so now we have to land on the last part of the story. And the last part I'll be very brief about, only because I think it's the funniest reading in the sacred scriptures. Not because of what it says. Actually, because of what it says, the funniest reading in the Bible to me is the conversation in John's Gospel of the man born blind. Because everyone just stands around incredulous. You mean, you were blind? Uh-huh. And now you see? Uh-huh. Well, how did this happen? Well, I couldn't see him. But I think it was that Jesus felt him. Well, he can't be from God. I was blind from birth. And now I can see you're wearing that ugly dress. I think you're reading this wrong. That's why it's funny. Okay. This reading is funny because of the fact that when you're sitting at the presider's chair, you get to watch everybody. And so when this reading starts, it's just giggle-rific for me. Ephesians 5:21-33. Now, and I have to be careful here because there are some other truths we have to talk about here. And this is the other side of the story. Okay. So far we've heard all the good stuff. Here's the bad stuff. Be subject to one another out of reverence for Christ. Now get ready for the finger poking. Wives, be subject to your husbands as to the Lord. So now the husbands have started. See, honey, I told you. And in the midst of all this finger poking, they're going to miss something very important. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, and is himself its Savior. As the church is subject to Christ, so let wives also be subject in everything to their husbands. Now, ladies, let's be honest. This is for the ladies. Ladies, let's be honest. There are some guys who are dogs. They're dog-tagging. And they will take that passage and use it to abuse the dignity of women. And if that's ever happened to you, I'm sorry. That's not what that passage is for. Subject is better than the word submissive. But the word in Greek, there's not a great word in English for it. So we're stuck. Okay, this is one of those ones where you can't win no matter how you translate it. The best way to read this idea of subject is, since it started with the comment of be subject to one another out of mutual reverence for Christ, something tells me it's the word service is the best word. Be of mutual service to one another. So the wife then turns and says, okay, well then, I have to be of service to my husband. And this is where the finger pointing starts, because they think, well, see, I get everything. But I also have an answer for those of you perhaps who have experienced the downside of this idea of being subject. And here's your answer. Wives, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Oh, that's right. If a guy is sitting around saying, well, you have to be subject to me, and you ladies use this line to me. Oh, okay, well, if you're willing to die for me, so I would be made pure and holy before God. Oh, okay. But this is the big tip-off. See, this is the great theology of the body lesson, isn't it? Because when I look at this, I suddenly get an image in my head that explains something to me. No wonder we have such difficulty with sex and marriage and the meaning of our lives, because this isn't the standard we use. This is not the standard we're using. Now, take away the sex and marriage part, this is still the standard we use. So some of you might be in college right now thinking, well, I'm going to get a great job. Well, only the economy picks up. But, sorry, that's a little too close to home, wasn't it? Sorry. But is that what you're living for? Is that why you were put here on earth? To get an ABOC? Is that really? Really? Well, maybe some of you are thinking, well, I'm here to be famous. Really? So you, Kathy Griffin, can hang out on the beach. Great. Okay. Super. That's what you're here for. Huh. Or maybe it's this. Maybe what you're here for is this expression of the very meaning of your existence. That made for love and made to love, you are made to make a gift of yourself in a dedicated fashion, so that another might truly know the goodness of God. See, that's the last step in this reading. After Paul goes on and on to explain why husbands should love their wives, he ends with this observation. Marriage, this, is a great mystery. And I mean in reference to Christ and the church. However, let each one of you love his wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. See, that dreadful thing, if you just read the whole context, it makes much more sense. And if you just read that one verse by itself, it makes so much easier. Hidden in that mystery of marriage is what? The revelation of Christ and his church. Well, but take a step back. All that's rooted in what? The goodness of the human person, which means that each one of us, hidden in the very mystery of our being, is meant to reveal the effect of that self-gift, and then be enacted